Hey pals, welcome back. My sim racing setup has seen a lot of changes over the last few years, evolving from a humble G29 clamped onto the edge of a desk into this, a fully spec direct drive system that's stacked with premium hardware. As I continue to improve and optimize this setup, I found myself wanting a more immersive experience, which led me to purchase the LG GX9, a 45-inch ultra-wide OLED, which right now is about as good as it gets in terms of monitor specs. In order to get the most out of this setup, I decided it was finally time to build my first gaming PC, so in today's video, I'm going to walk you through the entire assembly process. Basically, I'm going to build the PC my sim rig deserves, so let's do this. Starting things off with the motherboard, I went with the Asus ROG Strix B650EI, which is a gaming-focused mini ITX board and a fan favourite amongst small form-factor PC enthusiasts. It seemed to be a good bang-for-the-buck option with plenty of I/O given its compact size, and some nice onboard features like multiple M.2 slots and Wi-Fi 6E compatibility. There were a couple of similar mini ITX options available to me, but I ultimately went with Asus because they're a brand I'm already familiar with, and they seem to have a good reputation in the gaming space, which feels like a sensible choice for a first-time build. For my CPU, I've gone with the AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D, which is an AM5 chip and pairs perfectly with this motherboard. As a novice PC gamer, I didn't really have all the context to understand why this is a good chip for gaming, but from reading a bunch of Reddit comments, I was able to ascertain that this chip basically has a very large L3 cache compared to most CPUs, which is particularly well suited to gaming performance. This is especially noticeable in sim racing titles, which are quite CPU intensive, and benefit from that cache design to help manage all the in-game physics and environmental effects and produce smooth, consistent FPS. Since this PC isn't going to be used for any productivity tasks, this CPU felt like a better overall choice than a Ryzen 9 series chip, which have more cores making them better suited to multi-thread tasks, but usually cost a bit more and aren't as focused on gaming performance. I have to be honest, I got super lucky with my SSD and RAM situation, which I bought before the AI boom at a much lower price than current market value. I went for a 1TB 990 Pro SSD, which in hindsight is definitely a smaller capacity than I should have gone for, but thankfully I only keep a couple of sim racing titles on this, so it hasn't really been a problem for me. I definitely lucked out buying 32 gigs of DDR5 memory for under £100 though, even if it was from Crucial. It's actually kind of gross how expensive these components have become, and I think it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Once everything is mounted to the motherboard, it's time to install this into our PC case. So the case I'm using is the Strayacom DA6 XL, which is an open frame chassis that has a super unique design and houses all the parts inside of a suspended rail system. I was particularly drawn to its tubular construction, which matches my rig's cockpit and has that exposed engine bay aesthetic, which felt quite appropriate for a sim racing setup. I will say that building in this case was quite challenging, even with videos from fellow YouTubers as guidance. And there were a couple of times where I felt a bit unsure. Part of the reason why it took so long to make this video was because I was convinced that I'd made mistakes and wanted to take some time to better understand how to get the most out of this. I ended up flipping the position of the power button and USB-C module, which were originally installed on the same side as the motherboard I/O, which I've oriented on the bottom of the case and was therefore a bit awkward to access. The DA6 has solid build quality and on the whole feels super premium. The XL has the same footprint as the regular version but is slightly taller, allowing for longer graphics cards to be used. To bring this build together, I took some inspiration from Devin Johnston's video and added these Strayacom VU1 dials, which offer a more analog experience and give the PC a tactile, mechanical feel that fits the overall theme really nicely. The dials use e-ink displays, just like a Kindle for example, and can be configured by using this desktop app to show various system metrics including CPU and GPU load, temperatures and other real-time data. I had to find this out the hard way, but I'd recommend installing these before the power supply just so you've got more room to work with and better visibility when plugging in the cables. Speaking of which, I'm using the Asus ROG Low-Key 850W Platinum PSU, which provides more than enough headroom for this build. It uses the compact SFX-L form factor, which mounts cleanly to the DA6 by using the included spacers that screw directly onto the rail system. For my CPU cooler, I went with the Noctua NHD15S, which is the single fan variant for better case compatibility. This is obviously the all-black Chromax version, which uses a 140mm fan that mounts between the two heatsinks and fits perfectly inside the DA6. The dual tower design is quite large, but it's extremely efficient and manages to keep the CPU temps low, even under heavy loads while remaining incredibly quiet. Installation was really straightforward, and even though it protrudes from the case slightly, I think it looks quite intentional within this build. Given the GPU orientation, I've had to use a flexible riser cable to connect it to the motherboard. I went for the Strayacom RZ4, which is designed specifically for this chassis and screws into pre-assigned mounting points. The cable is 21cm long and has 180 degrees connectors, which makes it ideal for the sandwich style layout I've gone with here. And finally, we come to the GPU, which is the Asus TUF 4080 Super. I bought this before the 50 series came out, and even though I did consider replacing this with a newer card, I ultimately decided that the performance gains weren't a compelling enough upgrade to justify the additional cost. I already get pretty solid FPS out of this card, and even though I could probably squeeze a few extra frames out of a 5080, I'm more than happy to use DLSS to make up the difference and reach the GX9's max refresh rate. Even in 2026, the 4080 Super is still a great option and has more than enough headroom for this rig. Even though I've been flirting with the idea of switching this out for a Founders Edition 5090, it only really makes sense to do that if I can get one for MSRP, so I'm just passively keeping an eye out for a restock. Anyway, I enjoy the industrial look of the tough lineup, and I figured a triple fan design would make sense with the open frame of the DA6. The PC feels a lot more complete with our graphics card installed, so the only thing left to do is to plug in all of our power connectors along with the case I/O module. The braided cables that came included with the power supply are nice quality, but they're quite long and there's a lot of excess slack that needs to be managed. Cable management is definitely the biggest weakness of an open frame build like this, so I'm probably going to measure everything up and buy some custom replacements at some point. For the time being, I've just 3D printed the panel's optimum design for his DA6 build and use these to hide some of the messier cable clusters. Once everything is fully assembled, we can bring in some other peripherals to ensure our BIOS are properly configured. Then it's time to run some benchmarks to get an idea of how this build actually performs. Whether you're building a PC for productivity or gaming, every setup needs a comfortable place to sit. So once again, I partnered with Lenovo, who have kindly sponsored this video. I featured the Omni chair in my last video, and I've really enjoyed using it as part of my desk setup since then. The assembly process is much more straightforward than building a PC, and by following the included instructions, I had this ready to go in about 20 minutes. The Omni has a modern, tech-focused design which works really well within a gaming setup, especially if you're going for that clean, minimal look. This can mostly be credited to the Bionic FlexFit backrest, which is made up of these flexible panels that support the S-curve shape of your spine without restricting your body's natural movement. Something I've learned about ergonomics is that we all have different seating styles. What works for one person might not be a great fit for another. Ultimately, your goal should be to improve focus and reduce fatigue, and a chair that maintains perfect posture all the time might not be appropriate for someone who prefers to move around a bit more. Something I really like about the Omni is that it doesn't punish you for different sitting angles. The option is there if you want to recline, and the headrest supports your neck during more relaxed postures. This works well for different use cases, like being upright and alert for FPS titles, slightly more reclined for controller gaming, or completely lean back while watching cutscenes. Each position feels stable and supportive, rather than only being optimized for just one sitting angle. After spending a bit more time with this chair, I've also noticed that it deals with pressure distribution over multi-hour sessions really well. The Omni seat cushion is a bit small compared to other chairs I've used, but it's consistently comfortable over prolonged use and doesn't contribute to unnecessary aches or fatigue. I've also been making the most of the Omni Stretch Spinal Massage, which is a 5-minute program that uses the motorized column to relax and decompress your spine. The controls are built into the armrest, and the battery is big enough that you don't really have to think about charging very often. All things considered, the Omni is a solid choice for a gaming chair, and it's definitely earned its place within my setup. Thanks again to Lenovo for sponsoring this video. So behind me is the monitor I use on my sim rig. It's the 45-inch LG GX9, which has a 5120 by 2160 OLED display that can run up to 165Hz at its native resolution. The goal here is to get as close to that as possible, so I ran some benchmarks in Assetto Corsa Evo and F125, which gives us an idea of what this build can do for my sim racing setup. In AC Evo, FPS remained consistent at around 90 frames per second when using the Ultra Graphics preset without any upscaling. With DLSS balance turned on, this jumped up to just over 120 FPS, and performance took things up to 135 frames per second. However, this is where I started to notice some movement artifacts. To get the most frames out of this monitor at its full 5K 2K resolution, I had to turn the graphics preset down to medium, at which point I was consistently getting over 150 FPS. This obviously means that I have to compromise on some visual detail, but I think it's better to prioritize stability and smoothness over peak graphics fidelity in a sim racing context. In F125, I was getting just north of 80 frames per second when using the ultra high preset, which then jumped up to 150 with frame generation turned on. In the performance modes, I was able to get this to over 200 FPS, but the artifacting was pretty terrible and in my opinion just wasn't worth the frame rate gains. So generally speaking, my base performance was a little under 100 FPS at native resolution, which I was able to bring up to the GX9's max refresh rate with the help of DLSS. Obviously there's a lot of factors that can affect this, like the amount of cars on the grid and weather effects, but generally speaking, these were the sort of numbers I was getting. Overall, I'm happy with this build's performance. Obviously you have to remember that this is a 5K 2K ultra-wide display, which has roughly 30% more pixels than a standard 16:9 4K panel, so these numbers are going to reflect that. Even with a previous generation graphics card, it was still able to achieve the GX9's max refresh rate whilst maintaining stability under load. Temperatures were also well managed, with the CPU and GPU never exceeding more than 60 degrees Celsius during my tests, and the fan remained whisper quiet even during more intensive moments like starting the race with a full grid. Obviously there are some things I want to address like the cable management, but for a first time build I'm honestly super happy with how it turned out. I definitely caught the bug for ultra-wide gaming and I'm already planning my next PC build, so make sure to subscribe for more videos like this in future. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.